City of Stevens Point Age-Friendly Commission meeting, recorded December 19, 2023.
We could start the December 19th, 2023 meeting of the Age-Friendly Commission. We'll start with the roll call. Bartnick, I know, is excused. Douglas, I don't see at the moment. She might be running a few minutes late. Giblin?
Yep.
Jury?
Yep.
McDonald is excused. Miller?
Yes.
Swangstu?
Yep.
Did I say that right?
Swangstu. That's fine.
Swangstu. One of these days I will. Wall?
Yep.
Wigginton? I don't. Oh,
Hi, Don.
There we go. Didn't see ya. Perfect timing. And Zerzua.
Here.
Perfect. We
You're
got
at this
a
table,
quorum.
sir.
Come sit. Hi.
There's a copy then.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2 is the selection of a chairperson for the Age-Friendly Commission. This is more just a technicality, since really for all city committee commissions, we ask that there is a chairperson and a vice chairperson selected amongst each group. So at least for this commission, there's not a whole lot of actionable items outside of the minutes, so the role of a chair and a vice chair won't be as arduous as other city committee commissions, but the floor is open. If there's anybody who is interested, feel free to give a nomination for yourself or a nomination to someone else in the commission. No pressure.
Come on, Don.
I'm new. This is my first meeting.
Any interest?
I'll nominate Commissioner Giblin.
Yes.
She looks really excited about it.
Do you accept the nomination?
I'll second it.
We don't need a, we won't need a second
You're
for
up next, Dave.
nominations. Okay, any other nominations for chairperson? Seeing none, all those in favor of selecting Commissioner Giblin as chairperson of the Age-Friendly Commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Chair Giblin, this is your commission now.
Okay.
So we got, oh,
You were
sorry.
looking at me. You made eye contact.
All right.
I think he's got
So now we got,
Do I have to do stuff now?
Yeah, so we'll just need you to read item number 3 and kind of do the same thing as what I just did.
Item number 3 on the agenda for possible action is selection of a vice chairperson for the Age-Friendly Commission. Are there any self-nominations or nominations of hostile intent? Or regular nominations?
Oh, that's funny. I'll just add the only time the vice chair would ever become chair is if Kate is not here, so.
Incapacitated. I nominate Don.
Okay,
Do you accept?
sure.
There you go.
I'd be happy to serve under Kate.
We could do a vote.
You have to ask for any other,
okay.
other
Yeah,
nominations.
any other nominations?
There will be many.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, will the rest of the commission like to vote?
All those in favor
All those in favor
signify by saying aye.
signify by saying aye.
Opposed say no,
Opposed say no.
Who's in nomination?
and it is confirmed.
Is confirmed. This is going to
This is
be
very
a
formal.
very big learning process. for
You're good. I'm here for you.
All right. Roberts and I aren't friends.
Okay, then item number 4, I'll need you, and this will be the last one. Kate.
Okay, and then item number 4, report of the November 16th, 2023 meeting of the Age-Friendly Commission.
This will need a motion and then a second.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 4, the report for November 16th meeting.
I will second that.
Can you roll on that?
No
Okay.
individual, just all those in favor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Any opposed? Thank you, Don. Can we switch bowls now? All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
All right.
And then-
Then I'll just have you,
And yeah, just a quick clerical
Oh.
thing here. So this report, I'm assuming that's just the minutes, just report and minutes?
yep, yeah, report and minutes are synonymous. And I'll just have you read item number 5, Kate. and
Item
then-
number 5, conducting a community network analysis of Stevens Point.
All right. So, as we talked about last time we met, really the good chunk of 2024 is going to be focusing on the public participatory process of creating this action plan with this commission. So before I kind of did a deep dive into what we're going to be talking about today, I wanted to provide just a tentative timeline as it pertains to the public participation phase of the planning process, just since I think it might be helpful to understand kind of the full scope before we dive deep into specific stakeholders in the next few minutes. So obviously tonight's going to be focusing on identifying certain community stakeholders who have a vested interest in one or more of these topic areas that we talked last time that's shown on the screen. These are going to be more so focused on, say, civic organizations, advocacy groups, if there's a certain individual stakeholder who has significance to any one of these domains. That's going to be more step 1 of this public participation process. The step 2 will be the surveys, the kickoff parties, the more larger scale public engagement meetings where you're going to where the goal of our commission is going to be to solicit feedback really en masse from the general public. So again, today is going to be identifying those stakeholders. Roughly mid-January to March is when these one-on-one conversations with these identified stakeholders are going to occur. So the folks that we determined today, the next few weeks and months are going to be those one-on-one conversations with and hopefully some of you join me for certain stakeholders in having more personal conversations about their roles as it relates to any one of these topic areas. Once we go through this list, we'll reconvene as a commission. I gave a rough timeline of March. Obviously, the time is fluid. We'll see how timing goes. But the next time we meet as a commission, the goal of mine is to, 1, discuss some key takeaways from these stakeholder meetings. What are some things that we've learned, some surprises, some insights that will help us as we progress through the planning process. Second will be to plan the kickoff party, since by March, knock on wood, hopefully we're thinking happy thoughts about spring. So our minds are kind of in a better attitude as it relates to that. And then lastly, finalize more of the community survey preparation. So when the time comes for April and May, we can send out that survey to try to get that feedback en masse from the general public, and then start preparing that kickoff party in May or June. Again, that's going to be more so weather depending, as it would be my ideal to have that kickoff party outdoors and at a time where it's reasonably warm, which who knows when that will be in this great state that we live in. And then lastly, June will be reconvening again as a commission to discuss the survey results and some key takeaways, and then kind of have a more deeper conversation about the number of domains and what specific domains we want to target within this final report. Within this final report, once we have those stakeholder conversations and those survey responses collected. So, as we talk about tonight, what my goal here is to go through each of these domains, starting with housing and working our way down, and really think big picture. This image I included in the agenda packet, and I thought this was a really good graphic to kind of think holistically about what are some potential stakeholders as it relates to a certain topic area. So what are some advocates in the private sector, public sector, who benefits from a certain resource community resource that's being provided. If there is policy, regulatory reform that's an issue or of concern, who are those players at the table as it relates to that? Volunteers, religious-based organizations, for example. So as we go through each of these topic areas, I'm going to have these on the same graphic on each of the slide, but I want you to use that as a reference to think about what are some community organizations, some advocacy groups that might fit within any one of these areas here. Last thing before we start with housing, a couple of quick bullet points that I wanted to talk about. First, when we think about community organizations, by and large, most of these are probably going to be Stevens Point focus, but by all means, whatever organizations that come to mind, they don't have to be just located in Stevens Point. If there's a countywide organization, say if there's an advocacy group on the state level that has a direct influence, say to housing on the local level, that is, in my opinion, a perfect group to have a conversation with that stakeholder and try to get some feedback from them. So, I started out with housing here more so because this is personally the most dense topic, and it's a pretty wide umbrella. So to kind of kickstart this conversation, the first thing I put on the screen is, if somebody comes up to you and says, I choose not to own a home or rent in Stevens Point because of blank. Finish the sentence. What are some things that you hear amongst with your experience in your day-to-day life, talking with friends, community partners? How would you finish that sentence based off of your feedback, your experience?
I'm saying too expensive.
Yeah, affordability.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Availability.
rent is going up every year. That's one of it also.
Rents. Okay. Okay.
There's not enough accessible housing.
And is that, I have an opinion, but I want to hear yours. New construction, older buildings, or is it kind of uniform across the board, regardless of age of the house, where inaccessibility, hopefully that's a word, of housing, that's an issue?
I think that we've been taking down housing and building, but not necessarily making gains. Older housing in Stevens Point isn't as accessible, narrow doors, so they're difficult for people as they are aging in their homes or develop disabilities or illnesses. And so I think that it's kind of a combined, universally, there's not enough housing that is accessible for people with disabilities. And then in Stevens Point, we're like losing, like we just lost Edgewater. We gained the Berkshire, but it's kind of like, so while there's still more going up, there remain long waiting lists for housing, especially for low income and older adults.
Anything else that comes to mind from your experience?
Are those what you're referring to, community housing? Are they community housing?
Kind of
units?
both, there's the Section 202 housing, and then there's just like apartments for seniors or apartments for single individuals or small, like starter. But chiefly, among all the other comments, it was that the housing is not accessible. And accessibility makes it easier for 5-year-olds to use as well as, older adults with arthritis or someone in a wheelchair.
specifically thinking of age-friendly, to your point, seniors, people who are looking to downsize, who don't want to have a larger home with a larger yard. They want something newer that has lower maintenance, that's available in the city proper. North side, close access to the university, to bus routes, to downtown shopping, so that they don't have to drive everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's those two. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Michelle. So access or close proximity to public transit, and I would say really like lot size requirements, like lot size requirements and minimum size requirements for a house, to build a house, for more so for new construction, because that's something that I hear time and time again, and that for most areas of town, except for one zoning district here, minimum size to build a new house is 900 square feet.
Okay.
You know, we don't have, you know, offerings for, say, a 400, 500 square foot home where
Right.
some people
Right.
are interested in that.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Anything else that comes to mind?
I would say the affordability piece, as far as, like, we have housing authorities, but the wait list for a voucher is years long, and if a person now is looking, you know, needs to move out of their home, I mean, they would be waiting a really long time to be able to maybe afford different housing.
Good point. One thing that it's a focus on my end from a preservation planning standpoint, is that there's a very acute interest amongst our Historic Preservation Commission of trying to reoccupy second stories within buildings in the downtown. Now, if you know, just looking through records, there's a fair number of them that are unoccupied for a number of reasons. The lack of accessibility, not meeting certain building code requirements, and that's a big issue and step to try to achieve. But, you know, what are some tangible improvements that can be done to kind of make all parties happy? Building code, preservation world, accessibility world. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is really the scope of this section, of the housing section, as it relates to this commission's action plan. As I mentioned, housing there's a wide umbrella. It's talking about the affordability of housing, the availability of housing, more so regulatory reform, such as your setbacks, lot size, minimum size requirements for a house. I guess, what's the scope that you as a commission want to focus on related to this section? Are you looking to try to be a wide scope and try to cover all those areas, or do you want to have a more centralized focus?
Well, as I was listening to everyone here sharing, one thought that kept occurring to me is when I've been in other communities in the country, they're working on more diversity within their neighborhoods. So some neighborhoods were all private houses, and now they're changing. So the neighborhood might have apartments and private houses, and, you know, some like cooperative situations where, you know, seniors may live in one side and a family's in the other side. Like, potentially, like with what this commission, the scope, and I mean the enormity of all of these domains, is to look at potentially what makes a community rich and livable is that diversity, you know. So you would want a senior next to a family, next to someone with disability, because they create those informal social supports amongst each other.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay. Any other comments, or generally in agreement? Okay. So the next specific stakeholders, specific organizations that come to mind, again, yeah, using this graphic on the right-hand side of the screen and within the packet, what are some organizations, some groups, some specific individuals who have a collected interest as it relates to housing that would be worthwhile for us as a commission to talk to? And you can just shout out any groups that come to mind.
The
Cap services.
housing authorities, some of our large landlords.
Builders. Yeah, so I was going to say builders.
Yep.
And
Yep.
those that kind of, can address the availability problems. And again, the planning, right? The mixed use scenarios and things.
Realtors?
Developers. Developers, yeah.
Perfect. Any others that come to mind? This doesn't have to be a comprehensive list. If you think of any other persons or organizations afterwards, feel free to shoot me a call, shoot me an email.
I would say Door to Dreams. 'Cause
Yes.
They're working specifically on housing for people with intellectual disabilities, but they obviously a lot of the same kind of goals.
Right. And I think from an accessibility standpoint, where I work at Belk, we do accessibility assessments, and so we get very involved with being able to help developers or anybody, either from a new construction point of view or from modification of an existing structure to make it more accessible for individuals. So we get involved with that all the time.
Caitlin, from a public transit standpoint, when you folks are considering a new transit stop, is the proximity of that stop to a existing residential neighborhood a consideration? Or I guess the location of a stop relative to an adjacent neighborhood, like to what extent is that a factor in determining a certain area as a bus stop?
I mean, it's definitely a big factor, I would say. Like even the Grove, like we're working on trying to get bus stops there for individuals, because right now we don't have, the closest thing is our Green Route at Festival, but that's kind of a trek for a lot of people. So I would say, yeah, definitely like the neighborhood, it depends on, the need also.
Okay. Perfect.
I was also thinking that we could reach out to the UWSP School of Interior Design. They have a lot of students who are working on accessible and universal design.
That's been one thing that we talked about during a few housing task force meetings now, and I think this is actually one policy outlined within the document, is that city staff works with certain architects, developers, and create essentially model floor plans that we have posted on the city's website that a developer can basically copy and use that as a reference for any developable lots here in town to try to close the knowledge gap and try to reduce the level of nervousness of going through that process. So I really like that. I really like that example. From a regulatory standpoint, I know there was conversations about availability of housing, more so the housing size requirements, any individual stakeholders that would be of interest as it relates to more regulatory reform on the local level,
I'd probably say
state level.
the City Plan Commission.
Yep.
Anything else? This is a
I've got
really
I've got
helpful
one.
list.
The Associate Planner Zoning
Heyo.
Administrator.
I don't know who that person is now.
Top of the list.
I'll talk to myself about that one. I like that. Okay. Anything else for housing that comes to mind?
I don't know how to phrase it, but I happened into a meeting at Whiting just the other night, and it was about a development of the old Whiting. We were there for the Green Circle, but the discussion came up about developing part of that 42 acres that was the old mill.
Yeah.
And a developer, I think they kind of had words in the past, but was back with a new idea. So he said, well, here's some single parent or single family stuff here, and it would start around 340,000 and 350 or something like that. And then in the middle, there's some side by side kind of things, and then here's two buildings that house 48 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, everyone at the meeting said, we don't want that.
It's not popular.
That's what people can afford, but we don't want that because we're just this part of the area that's single.
Build it over there.
Build it over there.
NIMBY.
So I guess I don't know how to say this, but density is an issue with all of this. With lower cost is going to create density, and then we get that kind of conflict. But I think that's part of the problem.
Community
solved.
engagement piece.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know who those people are. But it's the voter.
Okay.
I don't know at what point they should be involved or as stakeholders, but thinking of like long-term care, like in Clusa and Lakeland, because they are the ones that are providing services and putting stuff into place for people that are aging.
And I would add Irish to that mix instead of just family care, which is another long-term waiver support system.
And I just want to dovetail off what John said. In the places I've seen the mixed housing, there has always been resistance to that type of thing. And so one of the things our commission might want to do is look at reframing that, into what a healthy, walkable, sustainable community looks like, so that, if we work on reframing that in a more positive light, it might be better received in the long run as these types of projects start to form.
It's just on another meeting a few days ago, I can't remember too many meetings, they were talking about intentional housing for people with young adults with intellectual disabilities, and how they're building these communities where they live and work, and they're incorporating businesses into the community for the young adults to work at. And I would imagine that they had to go through some of that, not in my backyard, and there may be things that we can learn from. Journey 21 is one of them that's down in, I think, the Milwaukee area, Conowalk. There were like 3 listed. They're called intentional communities, and there's actually one at Stevens Point that's trying to get off the ground. It may be one of the ones.
Florida Dreams.
Yeah, that's it. And so, the meeting I was talking about how to provide pooled funding for resources for those individuals in terms of the long-term care system. But again, that could be ways that maybe we would want to reach out to learn more about some of the things that they went through to get to where they're at today, to if we ever want to get something like that in the Stevens Point community.
I like that. Okay. Next up, I think maybe our second most dense topic, transportation. So I think just the initial question to help spark the conversation would be, what are some obstacles that exist to get around in Stevens Point? And this would be any modes of transportation: vehicular, bike, pedestrian, public transit, more recreational. What are some obstacles that you witness firsthand, that you hear from folks?
I have a son that has an intellectual disability in the community and was not able to take the bus from where he lives on Fifth Avenue to his Special Olympics bowling practice in Plover because they don't go that far. So then I called a cab company, and then once they found out we were going to Plover, they said we're not interested at all, and then had to call another one, and then Yeah, so it's been something I've kind of lived through now the past couple of months, and so I think increasing partnerships maybe with surrounding communities for buses, as well as finding a way to establish maybe better cab companies.
The taxi service, do they report to, is it the Transportation Commission, the county? Or I guess who's
Yeah, Plover
purview
Taxi
do they-
has a contract with the Village of Plover.
Okay.
I don't know if they have any communication with.
They're on the commission. I think there's somebody on the commission.
Okay.
From Courtesy Cab, I think.
Yeah, they're the ones that said they couldn't do it.
Okay. Might be a good stakeholder to talk to.
And at least learn more, find out why. What are their barriers?
What are some of the roadblocks?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Other obstacles that you know of, that you see, hear from?
Well, in transportation that's not the bus is really cost prohibitive for people that are on a limited budget. I mean, the taxi going a short distance in town will cost you $8 one way. And I mean, that's a lot to go somewhere and, pick up your medication or whatever. And yes, there are, medical transportation and stuff that people can get, but it's definitely a barrier. But that's also what's available outside of the bus hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the hours and days that we run, I know a lot of people work later than our buses go, and then also on weekends, some people, like out at Fireside, I've had people, they don't have anything to do during the weekend, and then they kind of are stuck there because we don't go out there during the weekend.
Any, as it relates to physical improvements, curbs, crosswalks, more of the lighting or like rapid flashing beacon that you see as one example along Division and Franklin. Is that an issue? I know what the answer is. I want to hear it from you. Is that an issue that you see firsthand as it relates to mobility?
One of the first things that the Disability Coalition of Portage County did when they reformed after the pandemic was to try to encourage businesses to address curb cuts. We also met with the city of Stevens Point. I'm not sure if you were in that meeting. But what happens is in Stevens, what happens in Stevens Point is that the plows will go and then people may shovel, but then the plows come back through to pick up like that tail end, piling the snow in the curb cuts and making it impossible for someone with a mobility device or maybe someone who's not that steady on their feet in general to walk like 2 blocks in town. And it's the city is kind of prohibited by funding and
By state statutes, at least
state
for requiring.
statutes. And then, it's an education issue with property owners who have curb cuts. They don't understand that they need to clear that too. And so it is a real problem. I think it impacts businesses because people are less likely to, let's say maybe you parked at Goose and you want to walk like 3 blocks down to a store. I think people with mobility issues are like, no. And we're seeing people who are in like wheelchairs or motorized wheelchairs having to, come out into the street to get to the bus instead of being able to access safely. They're not able to see between cars because people are like, it might be better cleared between 2 cars parked on a street than at the actual crossing. So people are kind of going in, and so that's like a risk for kids and not seeing pedestrians. So I do think that our snow storage and removal problem remains. Yeah.
And I think, to add on to what Kate just said, I think there's importance in terms of the curb cuts. We all know from accessibility standpoint, but when you look at what this commission's trying to do from an age-friendly, I think we need to go above and beyond that too, right? Because as an elderly person walking that may not be in a wheelchair, but just how do they safely, if we want them out in the community, leaving their homes, how can we ensure, but again, that's like you said, it's educational. Is it through, laws and regulations of making sure you're doing, is it through grants to get better
Right. We'd
Heated
explored like,
sidewalks so that.
we'd explored like, can the university give extra credit for students to adopt a corner? Can a civic group, there's a group in Minnesota called Snow Angels, and they go out and clear curb cuts and stuff like that. So, you know, there's potential solutions that are positive and like community building. But yeah, it remains an issue. I mean, for everybody north of the Mason-Dixon line, really, so.
Yeah. One issue that I hear a lot about is more so if you're trying to cross a street, the amount of time that you're granted to cross the street. One example that comes to mind was we were doing a walk roll audit along Center Point Water. This would have been maybe about a year and a half ago. As part of that test, we had one person was in a wheelchair and tried to cross from the east side of the intersection of Water Street and Crosby, cross from the east side of Water to the west side going towards Piffner, and it took them about 45 seconds, and that was a able-bodied person. And the amount of time that you got before the light turned green for the north-south lanes was about 20 seconds, and that's maybe a little generous. So you have somebody stuck in the road who obviously is in a precarious situation that you're hoping that oncoming traffic sees this person trying to cross, even though the light.
It happened to me.
It happened here, yeah.
I had to run before the
Yeah.
I can't run fast, but I had to run to get away from the traffic coming to me.
You know, that specific street, it's unfortunately jumping through hoops a little bit since that section of Water Street of Center Point is technically part of the Highway 66 collector. So you need WSDOT, state DOT approval for any changes to intersection improvements, which, you know,
But sometimes
it's not
you
like it's
have-
impossible. It's just, it's,
have this light that you touch and you can walk across.
Yeah.
We have one across in front of a building, and the drivers that doesn't stop for you to cross over. You have to wait until they it stop, and then when they're gone, if there's something not coming, then you cross over again. So I don't know if these things work. If
I know,
people
It's on a
notice,
curve there,
if they
too.
notice the light, I don't know.
And I've seen in Madison, Midvale, it's been picking up with mixed housing and then some of the older shops as well, but they have like two baskets on each side of the street with a flag in it, so people can pick up a flag. And at least when I've been driving, people are very good about making sure that they
It makes them much more visible,
Right,
especially when
yeah.
there's cars.
yeah, even at night, because they're orange,
Yeah.
neon orange flags.
We also, I don't know if it's possible, but at some particular crossings, it might be nice to have audible crossing lights for people with low vision, so they can hear their time and know when it's safe to go.
and I know that is something that we've been, well, it was talked about testing out in 2024 at a couple targeted locations. More, of course, there's a cost to that, so, in a perfect world, we could do it at every intersection possible, but our goal was to do that in 2024 as a test run and see really just user responses to that type of infrastructure in place, so.
Yeah. And lastly, I'm going to bring up the Business 51 corridor speed of cars. It really is shocking how fast people drive, while people are trying to walk across the street with baby carriages and things like
sure.
that.
So are you talking more so in the sense of an enforcement?
I'm not sure.
Sort of thing, or-
I don't know what fixes that, but, when you go around that curve by Belts and people have picked up to 35 miles an hour,
Yeah,
that's really scary.
yeah. So I think that was a good discussion as it relates to obstacles. Now, specific organizations, advocacy groups, individuals who have a stake regarding transportation in Point. And again, doesn't have to be organization located in Point. It could be county organization, state level. So anything that comes to mind right off the bat.
Probably WISDOT, County Highway Department, City Public Works, the TCC.
So from a regulatory.
Yeah.
Who can heat the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Heat. I'm curious how much that costs.
Oh, you don't.
I don't even want to know, but I'm curious.
Probably some of those fancy homes and that development will have them in their driveway.
I think some of the private plow companies, people who own plowing companies that plow up businesses might be interesting to talk to, because sometimes I think that they tend to, like, they'll miss some of those items.
Miss as in like leaving snow.
Like, plowing snow into a handicap spot, or, not clearing out,
Okay.
curb cuts and things like that.
Good point. Okay.
And cab companies.
Yep. Have that on there.
And I'm also thinking there's a group called New Freedom Transportation, I think, that we kind of are indirectly with it, but they originate out of up in the Eau Claire area primarily, but they've talked about getting a vehicle for us that we would keep at our location. And it's basically, you have to build up a pool of volunteers.
Yeah.
But then the volunteers it's free to drive anybody then. So I think that's something where when we start talking about affordability, that's, it's a program that we'd have to find a way to implement. But
To save American veterans and volunteers,
From
those drivers.
We have.
get back to that in a little bit. Any other things that come to mind?
I think like environmental groups, or groups that are concerned about, the impact of cars and that kind of transportation, because we can just piggyback off of those ideas. We have maybe different reasons for our goals, but we have some of the same goals. So improving public transportation systems so that people drive less is, a goal that they might have. Ours is, how do we make that transportation better for people who can't drive? So I think combining those initiatives can help.
I wonder if we don't want to also talk to the Portage County Business Council about how to foster an environment where perhaps more people are interested in starting up cab companies or investing in businesses that impact transportation.
It's a good idea. From a public transit standpoint, Caitlin, do you keep, I guess, two questions. One, do you keep records as to users of public transit, specifically like by age cohort? Is that data that you collect? I'm just thinking in the standpoint of, what percentage of riders, say 50 years of age or older, utilize public transit?
Yeah, so we just have, we don't have youth anymore, but we used to have youth tickets, but they're ad-free now, so I think we just have that on the tablet. So when somebody enters the bus, they have either youth, disabled, senior, or adult. But as far as like an age gap or like specific age group, I don't think we do.
Okay.
Our paratransit would have more of that kind of data, or our county services would.
And then from a financing standpoint, for riders looking to utilize public transit, what sort of financial assistance is there, either through your department on a local level or through state agencies, third parties who assist folks? I'm thinking of, say, if there's like a package between, say, people on Medicare with using public transit. Like, is there any sort of financial assistance programs for public transit?
We don't really deal with Medicare or anything like that. We get we have like Inclusa and Lakeland, they purchase tickets and passes it from us to give to their clients, but we don't have anything specific.
And not at a discounted rate or?
So we do have, like, through county services, we do have subsidized taxi or our rural bus that's at a cheaper rate than like a regular taxi would be.
Okay.
Yep. We get a block of funding for Portage County from the Older Americans Act, Title III money, that comes through the ADRC and then goes to Central Transportation to subsidize people 60 and over.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, there isn't like a funding like that for adults with disabilities or like 18 to 60. That's a real like no man's land. But I did want to say, like, the Disabled American Veterans house their vehicles there, but they run a volunteer driver program, and they might be good to look at a model for how they are recruiting, background checking, retaining volunteers. And along those lines, if we're getting very ambitious, there's an organization in Madison called SAIL, and it is a membership-based volunteer organization for seniors to support each other. So they actually collaboratively, like, every member does some sort of volunteering. So if you're good at taxes or if you like to drive, they kind of all do a bit of a social support sharing.
SAIL, S-A-L-E?
SAIL.
Like sail the boat. Okay.
Yep.
I'm really curious about that. Yeah, I'm going to have to, it was interesting.
But looking at models of how volunteer driving is working in Portage County might be a good starting point.
Yeah. Any other last minute?
I just want to bring up a different way of thinking about it. It's like, maybe it connects to housing, but I keep thinking, that we already have density downtown, and I can go to the church over there, and there's my bank right over there. I'd like to chat with Quick Trip or our stores or something. We need some kind of a place downtown where you don't have to worry about transportation. You can walk to just about anything, anywhere you want. We have everything except that. So, like a Quick Trip without gas. And that people could go in and get a sandwich and just, get both. And then once a week I can go get groceries, but the rest of the time I can pick up stuff I need.
Everybody
Like a
at
mini
my
mart.
building said that. They need something here, around here, then you have to jump on the bus or
I don't want
drive your
don't
own
want to
car.
take people
and
away
get
from your
food. And they were thinking about the Shopko. They were thinking about the Shopko. They should do something about that with that building, so we have somewhere to shop. There's a lot of people live in Stevens Point, but we don't have any. We have to go outside of Stevens Point to do our shopping, and then. So I think that's a good idea,
Okay. I think we'll jump over now to
I don't think he liked it.
outdoor spaces and buildings. So this is focusing, personally, I don't know why ARP lumps this all into one, because personally I think it might be better just to separate the two. But outdoor spaces, you're talking more so public parks, more recreational areas, like a Willett Arena, for example, baseball parks. And then buildings more focusing on the accessibility of it. So having elevators, having zero-step entrances, staircases with railings, to give some examples. So some groups of influence. So I guess what groups come to mind that has influence over the above? And I think we'll separate the two. Let's start with kind of outdoor spaces. So parks and recreational areas. What are some groups, organizations who have influence, either from a policy regulatory perspective through an advocacy lens? Green Circle Trail?
That's what I was thinking.
The university through Schmeekly, they're doing amazing
Yeah,
things for
it is.
accessibility
They really are.
at Schmeekly.
That's probably more the Friends group than it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, the Friends of.
The Friends of Schmeekly. Mhm.
Yeah.
We should have included the Plover River crossing in our transportation discussion.
Yeah. The tough part, you could make an argument this could, Plover River Crossing could fall in this area from a recreate, but yeah, that's definitely a good group to talk to. Plover River Crossing. Anybody else? Somebody like a Parks Commission?
I'll say City Parks and Recreation. Mhm.
Okay. Anything else specific to parks, open spaces?
I guess when it comes to the parks and open spaces, it might be beneficial to reach out to like a DNR grant liaison, because they have experience with other communities where they make parks more ADA accessible and things like that, so they might be able to give us some pointers.
Good point. Because I've heard this a few times now of a desire to add some accessible parking stalls. This would be on the south side of the parking lot by Xenoff. So people could use, because those parking stalls, where those ADA parking stalls would be right by a trail entrance into Sculpture Park. So that's been something I know we've been talking internally with Director Kramer to see, with him and Director Badoon to see if it's doable. It's just when could something like that be done?
Well, and I think, the like individual groups that have worked on the accessible additions to our parks. So like at Bucol, there's, I don't know offhand the names of any of the groups.
Prime Water Anglers.
Thank
That's
you.
where I was going to go.
Okay. I knew it was something anglers.
Yes, PWA. Mhm.
So groups that are focused on that stuff already.
Yes, agreed.
That's a good point.
I think one of them is also Ramp Up Wisconsin. Sounds about right.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking about how, like, the Stevens Point Tourism Board has highlights on their website.
Yeah.
Those types of things. And it would be really neat if people were looking to come and live here could see, like, there's, 10 miles of, like, decked trails in the community, or this is where there's accessible fishing. So there'd be one resource.
You're talking on the State Department of Tourism, or more so
No, I meant,
locally, like
so
CBB?
locally, like, and I don't know where it fits, but like, when we're trying to lure, or not lure, that's a bad word. When we're trying to, encourage,
Attract.
when people are researching maybe coming here to live and we want to attract them, having somewhere where they can find these outdoor spaces that are accessible. Because if I'm considering a job at, say, Century Insurance, but I'm going to be moving my mom with me who's in a wheelchair, I want to know how much is there for us in the community.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
There's no place for seniors in particular to walk in the winter. I hear it all the time. I mean, there are people out at the box stores walking through the aisles.
Yeah. And I've been working
It's
on
an
that.
expensive problem, but it goes on and on. They're going to brush snow off the Bucol to the bridge this winter if we get snow.
Yeah.
But that's not safe walking for.
I know it's always gets
Should
brought
they
up.
track it at UW, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
You can
but it
purchase a
is-
membership to walk in Skyward Fieldhouse.
Yeah, it is not free. Midstate Technical College has opened up its square in the mall for public walking.
Nice.
And then we have it at the Lincoln Center, but we do need a free, Walmart-y place for people to walk indoors. And not just nothing against Walmart, just, and it's not just for seniors, it's for moms with their kids, or, people who are recovering from, hip surgery or knee surgery who need to walk. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. So let's shift gears now to buildings. We talked about this a little bit in the housing section, but the intent of outdoor spaces and buildings. This is focusing more so on like government facility buildings, more community facilities like restrooms within a park, like KB Willett Arena, for example. So what are some groups that come to mind as it relates to the accessibility of community buildings?
Mid-state
Yeah,
independent
that's
living
what I
choices.
just want to say, but yeah.
I was gonna.
Gotta represent.
Yeah.
Waiting for.
That's what, yeah, that's what we do, so.
Yeah.
And I think we honestly need to do a better job of that, of letting people in the community know. I mean, we just had this fantastic skating event, adaptive skating event at KB Willett over the weekend. Just incredible to see these little kids and even older adults coming in and trying out the sleds. Yet they had an accessibility assessment done by somebody else. And I'm like, how does that even happen? How do you not know we did that? They're so wonderful to work with us. So, yeah, it's like, I guess I do have to be better at tooting our own horn. But yeah, I mean, I think, we have counterparts. So Midstate is one of 8 independent living centers in the state, and whenever we have the group come in, about every year and a half, we move around. But we look, where are we going to hold our meeting at? Where is it accessible? Where are we going to have dinner at? Where is it accessible? And there's very limited options for us. So I think. So yes, we can be involved, but I think it's a bigger picture of like, how does the community know? How do these businesses know that it's important and it's only going to drive more clientele? That yes, maybe you have to spend a little bit more money to have wider stalls in your bathroom, but you're going to get more people there too. So I think there's a huge education component of it.
One group I would say is our Bike Ped Commission, from the standpoint of a couple of reasons. One, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's been a longstanding goal of ours to adopt a ADA transition plan for our government buildings. For anybody who's familiar with those plans, it is a very dense, very exhaustive planning document. A great resource. It's one of those things that unfortunately has been pushed off just because of low-key a little bit of an intimidation factor with that. But I think they would be a good group to talk to in the sense of maybe them serving as an advocate to spearhead that effort. Because I think we all know utilizing some of our city buildings, there's definitely means of improvement that we can do from an accessibility standpoint. Anybody else?
I guess I would point out MREA, more of like on a efficiency standpoint. Because I know with a lot of these other projects and issues that we want to tackle, funding is normally number one as a hurdle. So if we can make our buildings more efficient, then there's more money for funding for activities, making improvements.
I'm going to add focus on there too, just to kind of couple both that and the sustainability lens in one, just since there's so many rebates offered through MREA, through Focus on Energy, so. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll jump to social participation. Now the next few, these are going to be ones where I'm curious, honestly, what your not expertise, but I guess what your thought processes are for some of these going up. So really a couple questions to ask as it relates to the social participation part is, what organizations here in town, in the broader region, promote the opportunity to socialize through public events?
Create.
Definitely.
Their concerts.
Yeah.
I like to think I do at the senior center.
Absolutely.
YMCA.
YMCA.
Our downtown business
Yeah, Association of Downtown Business.
Our churches.
Sure. Yeah.
Portage County Historical Society.
They do. Yeah.
Done some great
tremendous
events.
work. And I guess one thing that I want to, as we, really the purpose of this theme, social participation, is for us as the commission to think, for any of these past public events that's occurred in Point, are they accessible social activities? Are they affordable? Are there certain events that do charge a cost that is exorbitant enough that it'll naturally deter a subset of our population from participating in? So I guess, are there certain events maybe that are mainstays that happen every year, every couple times a year, that you think maybe are not fully accessible or that do charge a cost? That, what are some opportunities to potentially lower the cost so it can be more attainable for folks to attend?
Well, I think more from a space perspective of how many events occur at Pfiffner. So like obviously Create, and then, Riverfront Rendezvous, the city band concerts, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know specifically with accessibility concerns. I mean, there is a walking path, but it's obviously on the far side of that area. I know something I brought up when I was on Parks Board, we had talked, a long-term plan of maybe vacating Crosby and having like more park space, but I talked about that these are free events, and if we don't have a road through there, that limits people's accessibility to these free events that are kind of core activities.
One of the areas that we were talking about as it relates to potential pedestrian improvements would be just basically the entrance by Cultural Commons. I think I forgot how long back now, we added that curb cut on the east side of Crosby. So the thought was, is that an opportunity where you could create, stripe a sidewalk, add some signage or something to try to A, promote that this is the designated area where folks should cross the street if you want to attend Pfiffner, and B, try to make it more visible for, in this case, motorists. So, hey, be on the lookout for if there's anybody who's walking across the street or anybody in a wheelchair that needs to cross. But I really like Pfiffner as an example. I guess any other events that come to mind from a accessibility standpoint, from an affordability standpoint?
One thing that comes to mind that I'm seeing in other communities when I travel is for people who are getting rides or maybe are bringing someone with lower mobility, there's not like a really great safe place to drop off people. And so some communities are creating like Lyft, or shared ride little spots for valet stations for people. So it might be nice to have like a spot at Pfiffner where you can, like, let's say you get a cab there, or if you have a volunteer driver bring you to an event, that they can drop you off safely.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that. Next, we'll jump to respect and social inclusion. Now, this is similar to social participation, but this is focusing more so on who attends these social gatherings and how are these social gatherings promoted. So an intent for this is, what organizations sponsor intergenerational gatherings and activities to occur to try to bring all people together, bring all perspectives, all abilities together in one location.
The Foster Grandparent Program, which runs out of my agency, puts volunteer older adults in the schools. And they've had a lot of success with their model.
Let's see. Interesting. Perfect. Okay, anything else? And I know, again, these are social participation in this section is pretty tied together between the two. But there's
Over there.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys said it when I was out, but the CVB, I'm not sure if that was brought up.
Oh, we didn't mention them, but it's great.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about it slightly with the.
That one probably covers a bunch of these.
Yeah,
categories,
and maybe this is one thing I might have neglected to say this at the beginning, that there's naturally going to be some stakeholders that are going to cross multiple topic areas here, so no problem whatsoever. But yeah, definitely CVB would be a good example.
And then the Portage County Historical Society as well. I know they
Yep,
do a bunch
Michelle
of-
talked that.
Perfect, sorry,
Yep.
I missed it.
Nope.
Yeah, you good.
Cultural festival, folks.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
The library.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we'll do, next topic we'll discuss is work and civic engagement. And so the question I have here is, so what organizations provide opportunities for residents to volunteer their skills for public benefit? So this is focusing more on volunteerism for community good, for community benefit.
So the United Way and their Volunteers Rock.
Yep.
And RSVP, which is a retired senior volunteer corps, part of AmeriCorps. Right now, there's almost 400 seniors in Portage County who are members of that program, always looking for opportunities. Boy Scouts.
League of Women Voters. Which is not just for women. I just like to say that.
Anything else?
Hunger Poverty Prevention Partnership. Their Giving Gardens program and the pantry and Empty Bowls event that they put on. So there's lots of opportunities for volunteers to engage in that.
Hunger, poverty.
Hunger and Poverty Prevention Partnership of Portage County.
HPP.
I call them HP3 instead of saying
That rolls off the tongue
PPP.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next, and this
Wait,
is,
still on that last one.
yeah.
City of Stevens Point, committees.
Yeah.
As far as for people to volunteer
mean-
time to be on a committee?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of retired folks that have time for these
Civic
kinds of things.
Yep.
Meals on Wheels downtown, they have a fantastic program for recruiting, retention, managing volunteers. And she has great national resources for that model.
That's good.
And then I guess I would suggest, I'm not sure if these were brought up again while I was gone, I guess just the larger companies in the area, like the Skywards, the Centuries, I know they have a lot of volunteer programs.
Yep.
that we can kind of tie them in. I'm assuming those were all said while I was gone. So.
Not said. That was one thing in the back of my mind I thought of a few days back, but yeah, very good point. That targeting, talking to certain larger employers here in town to talk more so about, I would say even like employee retention, or, because I think one of the things that you see a lot now are people are naturally working later in life. So what are some accommodations that they, as an employer, provide as far as employee retention? As far as just the natural culture, the natural vibe of the workplace? Good suggestion.
And I'm not sure if DVR and ODC might play into that.
What does that stand for?
Okay, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. They help people get trained for jobs with disabilities. And then
Opportunity Development Center.
Development Center.
I knew that.
A lot of that kind of work.
Perfect. Next, the last two that we have, and this is probably going to be the trickiest. area. So communication and information. So this is gauging really how do residents receive their information? What platforms do they use to receive information? And I'm saying this in the context of naturally there is a generational divide as to how folks receive information. So what are some entities regarding the disbursement of information that would be wise to talk to?
Yes, to start, the local newspapers.
Yep.
To start. I would say media, social media, but I don't know, we're not going to be calling Facebook and asking them.
We might be on hold for a while.
Mark down here.
The city website.
I think that's part of it is engagement. I mean, like using social media through the organizations that are stakeholders in this process.
So like community newsletters like yours or ours. There's a lot of people that get their information that way.
Yeah. Ours goes out to over 2,500 people in print, which is a preferred media. But I want to, before we get too worried about it, you know, my mother is 76, and she knows how to use Facebook and YouTube. So it sometimes it's not really about age and media. It's about literacy in media. And so
Yeah.
maybe radio too, or other forms of communication which tackle, you know, low literacy or not having access, because not everybody has access to digital or internet in their homes or can afford it.
Forgive my ignorance, Michelle, John. UWSP, I didn't go to school at UWSP. Did not. Other areas of the state, but not here. What is the, like the news, like the TV, radio entity called at?
SBTV
Thank you.
and 90 FM radio.
And who
90 FM is probably more popular than SBTV.
do a fair number of college students in your experience utilize that in terms of just like casual listening, or do they utilize those modems? in your
Definitely the
experience?
radio station. I would say a little more limited with SBTV, and then the newspaper is called The Pointer.
That I knew. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And he says that you can spend a lot of time on this. People don't know what's going on. And
Yeah.
newspapers used to cover what's going on. It'd be like Thursday through next Saturday, you could see what's coming up. But now it's like, well, you want to go to the Pointer game. Well, you got to go to the Pointer website and see when the games are. Yeah, you go to SPASH, you find out. Historic Society, you got to go to there. It's like, no.
These are
Where is a
centralized.
calendar that I can see this week what's going on? And everybody says, well, we just don't have the money for that. I've tried to get the CVB to do it. It's like when you have people from out of town, wouldn't it be nice if on the hotel TV that here's what's going on while you're here?
Yeah.
But nobody wants to take it on. It seems like an electronic no-brainer that if you could put all your activities on something and it comes up for you once a week.
Again,
So
you're still going to get stuck with like what medium do you use for that, right? Because like
Yeah.
as somebody new to the area, I've only lived here a year and a half. I still use the tourism site because they do have an online calendar, and I try to figure out what's going. My daughter was in town, so like what's going on in the arts this weekend because she's big into that. But you're right. I mean, I've had this conversation with other groups about disability events. Like, you know, you got everybody doing stuff, yet there's no one place to.
And that'll naturally be a conversation we'll have, honestly, probably in next time we meet in April, May, as far as surveys are obviously going to be one means of receiving feedback from the public. I think we all know generally what are the positives, what are the negatives with the use of surveys as it relates to obtaining information. So what other means of public engagement can be done to help address some of the gaps that we will see as a result of using surveys? You know, face-to-face interactions, using social media, using the newspapers, for example, to try to transmit information to the public. So I really appreciate that.
I hope he'll forgive me for name dropping, but Professor Corey Huck at the university has been doing a lot of work in this,
I like names.
and he might be a very interesting and helpful resource. He's worked with us on how to market to older adults, and it makes a big difference, the work he's done. So.
The communications department or
He is when health and wellness, actually.
Health and wellness.
health and wellness? Perfect. Anything else regarding this topic?
I guess one more, I'm not sure if it was brought up again, but this one kind of touches on a few other, like transportation and housing, but CLUE, the Center for Land Use Education,
Yeah, I don't think we talked about that. No,
We
that's
did not.
because they touch on a lot of just different, I guess, aspects of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
They do a lot of education as well.
Point, good point.
If you went to Point, you would know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to
Went to a
jab,
couple-
I had to jab you a little bit.
Had to.
It's never too late to take a class.
I didn't take it for credit. I was just going to say the Transportation Academy from a couple months back. Didn't take that for credit, though.
One last thing on this. I have talked to Ben and a couple of other people about the possibility of Midstate offering almost a continuing opportunity for the older generation to come in and learn the latest way to communicate. And when you get a new phone, of course, they say, well, it's so intuitive, you don't really need to. It's like, no, I really need you to teach me how to do this. And everybody just kind of points you somewhere else, and so you end up talking to a friend or one of your kids or something.
It might be helpful. We offered Mid-States program Tech Savvy Seniors this winter, and it was great, but everywhere that is interested in offering, like including myself, we don't have the resources to set up a lab for 30 people, right? So I could squeeze like 10 people into the facility we have.
We could do it in our boardroom.
So, yeah, but everybody needed a computer for some of that class, so maybe we could partner with, somebody in the community, because we had like 40 people who wanted to take it, but we only had room for 10, and the Berkshire only had room for like 5, and so it is a great class, though. Yeah.
Last but not least, community and health services. So a couple things that come to mind. So, first, what are some organizations that assist residents in providing access to health services in town? This would be, this could be from a transportation standpoint, which we might have touched on earlier, to provide transportation to hospital appointments, to provide, say, a trip to Walgreens to get medication. I guess, what are some organizations that come to mind for providing that access to health services in town that we didn't touch on? I know we touched on a few already.
Did we talk about disabled American veterans?
Yes.
Okay.
Does Abby Vans come to this community?
They used to.
I've seen their van
Okay.
at Quick Trip around town.
Okay,
so-
I know, I used to be a
Part of
clinic
their
manager
passenger.
in Weston, Rib Mountain, and Merrill, and I know we use them all the time for our patients in those communities. I wasn't sure if they were in Stevens Point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Public Health, Portage County Public Health offers some clinical services for mental health, vaccines.
And then, naturally, regarding this section, and we touch on this in the housing section too, the affordability of having or being provided community and health services, and then the natural increase in folks wanting to age in place, age in their home. So what are some, maybe from a social services standpoint, what are some organizations, some groups that come to mind maybe from like a social worker background? I don't know, Makira, if there's anything locally or say like on a county or state level that, not putting you on the spot, but.
No, I don't think it's anything new that we haven't already talked about, like Inclusa and long-term care and Lakeland, Iris. I mean, those are going to be the ones that are authorizing these kind of supports.
I think Aspirus has a division of home health, do they not?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are, yeah, because we actually, people don't realize that we're an Irish agency as well, so.
Okay.
And then, we both have loan closets, so we have things that people can, that want to age in their own home, stay in their own home, try free of charge. From a telecommunications standpoint, there's a TAP program, and get things that we can loan people for free and then help them get vouchers. We did mention for mental health services, we've got Rock Point, so.
Yeah.
Most of the insurance companies with Advantage plans are offering some home health stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Not all the time, but on a visit basis.
Yeah, and on that note, the ADRC offers Med-D counseling, so the people can get information on insurance from an unbiased source. We also we curate a chore provider list, which includes home health providers, chore providers, so people can come if they need like assistance with shopping or doing their dishes or their laundry or their lawn and yard maintenance. The ADRC keeps a list of people we've background checked and done like a basic, check on, so that people can feel confident that if they're going to hire somebody who's a chore provider, they negotiate that once they get references from us. And so that can include a night nurse, people who are CNAs that do this like on the side. So.
Okay. Okay, no, I really appreciate, this was a really fantastic conversation, and definitely got a lot of groups written down here from what we've talked about over the last few minutes. So I guess in terms of next steps, what I'm going to do is pull this all together in a spreadsheet, which I may have shared just the initial template. So going through each of the topic areas that you see and highlighting the specific stakeholders, so the specific organization, individual, who is their target or audience, and then a point of contact. What my goal is sometime in the next few weeks is I'm going to send out the spreadsheet to all y'all, and if there is any specific organization that you really want to participate in that conversation with me and like talking broadly with them about housing or transportation or whatever area that they fell into, let me know, shoot me an email, because then I'll work directly with you and the stakeholder of interest into scheduling a time to have a sit-down conversation, a Zoom meeting, or whatever works best for y'all. Because really, this next phase in terms of the public participatory process will be to have these more individual conversations and then kick back, reconvene as a commission sometime in spring, late winter, early spring, to really go through the results of these conversations. That is it for item number 5.
And then I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. This is probably another one that was brought up while I was gone, but Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah.
Earlier on, I know we talked about it somewhere.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll just need you to introduce item
Staff
number 6.
updates is our next item.
Thank you. So I guess project timeline, honestly, I kind of touched on this earlier, right at the beginning, giving a rough, fluid schedule as to when some important dates coming up in the first half of 2024. So I won't speak more about that. Kickoff party, this is more so, I'm wanting to talk about this briefly just for you to kind of think in the weeks and months ahead about what type of party, what type of social gathering would you be interested in as we kick off, really bringing the community as a whole together to better understanding our initiative going forward? I know some of the examples that Darren mentioned last time, kickoff party, having more so like a open house style format, more of a presentation based format. But my goal, my preference, I guess personally, would be to have an outdoor event at some point. Of some capacity, obviously weather permitting, but think about it. If there's anything that comes to mind, give me a call, shoot me an email, and just so I can kind of have that in the back of my mind as we start to plan that. And then the last thing, Community Challenge Grant, as you all know, since you've gotten the emails from me over the last few weeks, that Community Challenge Grant, the project included as part of that grant, the installation of those 5 benches have since been completed about a month ago now. So definitely appreciate ARP's support through us receiving that grant. And I'll be remiss to say one grant through ARP that I'm looking at is the title of the grant is basically a small project but big impact grant, where it's meant to be, in terms of scope, in terms of scale of a project, pretty minor. So the amount of financial assistance that is awarded through that grant is up to $1,000. So whole grand scheme of things, not a terrible amount, but the intent is to have a really significant impact as a result of that project being installed or that project being conducted. So some examples are like one community in the north side installed some heating locations within their public market so that they could have like a farmer's market type of format during the winter months, or try to encourage more of these outdoor gatherings in more colder weather months. So if there's any ideas that is of interest that you would like me to look into as part of potentially submitting that grant application, let me know. There's a couple options that I have in my mind right now. I'm definitely happy to hear more. That is all that I got.
Okay, adjourn. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We don't need a motion.
Oh, you don't actually?
No.
Okay, well, in that case,
No, we just stand adjourned at
ready to do it.
6:28.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.